Hey, it's time for more content. I'm a big fan of mafia crime style movies, and my buddy for my birthday got me this box set from Raro Video that is Fernando Di Leo, somebody I have never heard of, and these movies I've never heard of. We have 4 movies in this box set: Caliber 9, The Italian Connection, The Boss, and Rulers of the City. And I thought, it'd be fun, let's go through this box set. We're going to start off with Caliber 9. This is a movie I've never heard of. I love these like little thin mini cases they have for these movies in the Raro box set. This is from 1972. So before we jump into the movie, be sure to subscribe. Consider becoming a member. Helps the channel.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Let's watch Caliber 9, shall we? Alright, so I just finished the first... I don't even know if you can see me right now. We just finished the first movie, Caliber 9, of the box set, and I have to be honest with you in saying that was awesome. First off, the music in this movie is fantastic. It's so good, I immediately, when the film ended, I looked up the soundtrack to see if it was on Spotify, and it's not, and I'm super upsetty spaghetti about that. The film follows Ugo Piazza, what a name, who is just let out of jail, who the Americano, a gangster, and his like little mobster crew believes they stole $300,000 from him. So along that, you get twisted in with the cops who are trying to also take down the Americano. Ugo Piazza's kind of in this mix-up where he's got to kind of clear his name and do these kind of jobs. And then on the outside of that is you have Chino, who is another... I don't know if it really establishes him as a boss. I don't remember them like calling him a boss, but he's another big-time player, and they kind of go toe-to-toe, and it is awesome. First off, the thing, like I said, the music in this movie is fantastic, and I'm going to go ahead and say that 1970s Italian movies, there are no better soundtracks out there. They just have the corner on soundtracks, right? They just have the best soundtracks. But outside of that I found the performances to be really good. Everybody in this movie kind of looks like somebody else. Like Ugo kind of looks like a knockoff Jason Statham. Rocco kind of looks like Bruce Campbell a little bit. There's just like, they kind of just kept reminding me of other people when they would pop up. You know, the cat and mouse of like, did Ugo actually take the money? What's going to happen with him? Is he going to be able to, did he actually take the money? And if so, is he going to pay off his debts? Like, how is he going to get out of this sticky situation, bouncing between the Americano and Chino and the police? Just really kept the pacing of this movie up and running, up and running, up and running. And not to mention too, this movie is action packed. Like, there is a ton of action in it, and it can be a little cornbally, it can be a little violent, but it's a lot of fun. There are certain movies out there that kind of fall into the realm of what I would call like a popcorn movie, where it's kind of pulpy, it's kind of fun. I don't know if pulpy is really the right word, but it's kind of fun. There's some serious moments, there are some tensions and some stakes, but it's never anything like super insanely serious because of the way it's kind of filmed. And that's kind of how I feel about this. There's a certain certain kind of air or vibe to the movie that is a little cornbally that makes this movie incredibly fun to watch. But it's also, like I said, very action packed and very kind of cat and mousey, to where it's also really fun and like engaging in a way, because you're like, you know, you do kind of care about Ugo at some point in this movie, of whether if he's going to get out of this sticky situation or not. This is the first of a trilogy in this box set by Fernando Di Leo. The other two are the next 2 movies we're going to talk about, and then the last movie I think is just a kind of like a on its own kind of thing. But in terms of like a start off, this is a solid recommendation, and I would give it an 8 out of 10 in all honesty. Now I know nobody really cares about my opinion, they only care about this guy's opinion, and on his scale of movies, this was a 10 out of 10 sleepable. He slept through the entire thing, napped like a baby through the entire runtime, so he gives it a 10 out of 10 on the sleepability scale. I'm back for another day of Fernando Di Leo, and today we are checking out the second movie in the box set, The Italian Connection, not to be confused with The French Connection, also from 1972, which is the same year as Caliber 9, and the second film in the Milan trilogy. I don't know. I can't remember what it's actually called. But yeah, I mean, if this is anything like Caliber number 9, I am really looking forward to it. All right, so I just finished The Italian Connection, and if my dog's lacking of changing position says anything to you, he thought the movie was super sleepable. But The Italian Connection, to me, was another hit. This movie was a ton of fun. First off, Mario Adorf, who plays Luca in this movie, is a phenomenal actor. He was also in another movie it's really worth checking out called Deadlock. And when it comes down to like between this or Caliber 9, I do want to throw out that I think Caliber 9 is a better movie. I liked Caliber 9 more than The Italian Connection because of its style, its kind of pacing, and honestly a lot of that music. I really like Caliber 9. It's also a lot more complex of a story, where The Italian Connection is pretty much kind of just a non-stop action movie. So what this film is about, The Italian Connection, is Luca is a pimp who is framed for a heroin heist. The Don of the stolen heroin hires in these two Americans to take him out to send a message, when the local Don of the area kind of gets involved, and, you know, the plot never really thickens. This is pretty much just like a full throttle action ride from front to start. And the entire movie is basically Luca just trying to escape and figure out how to deal with this situation. Kind of very John Wicky. But for me, like, I'm just going to say it right now. This is also an 8 out of 10 like Caliber 9. I do like Caliber 9 more than this, but this is still a fantastic movie that is a ton of fun. Really what separates the two is, one, the story isn't as deep or as rich as it is in Caliber 9. Two, the music in The Italian Connection is pretty awful, which kind of sucks because the music in Caliber 9 was such a standout. It really pops out at you. And I really think that if this movie had that kind of quality of music throughout it, it probably, honestly, would probably be higher than Caliber 9. The action in this movie is great. It's non-stop. There's a really fun moment with a crane. That was a lot of fun. I just like the kind of vibe of this movie, of this, we're just hunting this dude down as a manhunt style movie. And then on top of that, the Americans do pose a threat. They seem imposing and threatening, especially when they kind of interact with the Don of the local mafia and they kind of just put him in his place. You're kind of like, all right, these guys kind of are, you know, rough to say the least. Outside of that, I just really enjoyed this one. I thought it was pretty cool. It, in terms of like being shot and stuff, Caliber 9 and it look very similar. You can definitely tell it's the same director, the same vision, because there's a lot of the same kind of, you know, interesting camera angles and camera movements. And I do think Caliber 9 looks a little bit better in the long term. They were willing to kind of go a little bit more with like fancy shots. There's also some great shots in this, and I just like the way the action's handled. There's one really great car chase scene in this movie, and there's also one moment in this movie where I literally went, holy shit, like, did they just do that for real? I just couldn't believe that they just did that. Like, it was just like, boom, this happened, and you're like, whoa, hold up. But anyway, yeah, I really enjoyed The Italian Connection. So far, Fernando Di Leo is 2 for 2 for me, so we'll see how this goes with the rest of the box set. All right, we're back for day 3, for me anyway, of the Fernando Di Leo collection. And today we're doing The Boss. Now, The Boss is the final film in the Milani trilogy. I don't know how to say it. I didn't look it up. But it's the final film in that trilogy, and so far this trilogy has been awesome, so I have a lot of high hopes for this one. It looks like Henry Silva has returned and is potentially the main character in this one, and yeah, let's check it out. Let's see what it's like. All right, I don't know what's happening here, but this movie was amazing. This was my favorite one of the bunch, and honestly, one of my favorite movies I've watched so far this year in 2025. This movie was incredible, The Boss was, and even this Chubbers gave it like a 2 out of 10 on the sleepability because he pretty much watched the full thing. What'd you think of it, Lim? So this movie stars Henry Silva, who was one of the Americans in The Italian Connection. This time he plays a hitman, and the film opens up on a hit that he carries out that is insanely violent. Basically, you know, these mobster bosses go watch this sleazy in this theater, and he shows up and explodes them, and that causes the whole ripple for the rest of the film. Throughout the entire movie, there's players and movers that are shaking up the power structure of the Italian mobs in the area, and we have corrupt cops, we have boss who's going for revenge, we have a boss whose daughter gets kidnapped, we have an overarching boss that wants to keep the boss of the daughter who's been kidnapped in control. All in the meantime, we're centered around the main character, who is a hitman played by Henry Silva, who looks awful lot like handsome Squidward. Now, the first thing I do want to say is the music in this movie is the it is as good as Caliber 9, and actually I've come to find out that they actually reused some of the music from Caliber 9 in this and kind of like remixed it, and it works tremendously well. The other thing is, this movie kept me on my toes through the entire runtime. There are so many plot twists and character backstabs and character movements. It is like 6D chess through this entire film that just kept me glued to the screen throughout its entire runtime. We're bouncing between corrupt cops and yada yada and going back and forth, and you really am like, you're watching this thing going, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, I have no idea how this movie is going to end. The other thing is, there's a line in this movie that is so hard. I'm going soft for a nymphomaniac drug addict. It's like, as he's slapping the shit. It's like, what is going on? This is kind of a trilogy of all bad people. I mean, the Italian Connection, you could say the main character in it, Luca, was more of like a good guy who does gray area kind of things, where the rest of the trilogy is just following bad people doing bad stuff, and there's not really a happy ending, and you're kind of just in it for the violence and exploitation, and that is exactly what you get with The Boss. There is not a good guy in this movie at all. Everybody is bad. Everybody is greedy and selfish, and that just makes for inherently compelling drama as you watch these people get blasted across the screen. Now, one thing that I will say about this movie that did kind of come across a little bit as a letdown compared to the other two in the film and the trilogy is that the cinematography in this movie is a lot less significant than in the other two movies. The other two movies have some cool angles, some experimental camera work and things like that. This movie was shot very standard. Like, there are a few moments and glimpses here and there, but for the most part, it's pretty standardly shot. I wouldn't say it was a letdown, but it was kind of more straightforward in terms of visuals than the other movies. And I think, honestly, if I think it had that visual flair, my rating would be even higher than what it currently is. Outside of that, Henry Silva just has an amazing face as a stoic murder machine, and that works so well for the movie. But potentially the most disappointing factor of this movie is the fact that it ends on a to be continued that was never continued. And it does leave enough open-ended to warrant a sequel, because it kind of leaves on a John Wick-esque like cliffhanger where you're like, oh man, there's more to this that's going to be going on, and apparently we never got it, unfortunately. Outside of that, I gotta say The Boss was awesome. This was my favorite of the trilogy so far, favorite of the box set so far. I'm still giving it an 8 out of 10, a 4-star out of 5 on Letterboxd, which, by the way, you can follow me on Letterboxd if you ever want to see my reviews of things that sometimes don't end up on YouTube, but also you'll see them earlier than when they end up on YouTube. So follow me on Letterboxd. All my links are down below. But any bedoozle, I'm still giving it a 4. It is closer to a 4.5 star, a 9 out of 10, than it is a 3.5 star, 7 out of 10. It's much closer to a 9, and I could see it becoming a 9 out of 10 on a potential second viewing. I don't know. I will say this whole trilogy I think is fantastic. As of right now, before we go into the last film, this trilogy is worth the box set alone. Caliber 9 was awesome. The Italian Connection was sweet. This one is my personal favorite. I will say, though, to end off talking about The Boss, when it comes to the transfer and I guess restoration, if you will, this one had the most issues that I noticed as opposed to the other two. There were several moments where I don't know if it was like old damaged film or something, but there's a couple moments where the film quality was significantly worse than in other scenes. I've digitized some Super 8 and 8mm films, and when the machine is reading them it can kind of like stutter sometimes if there's like a bad section, and it kind of creates like this warble effect on screen. You know, I feel like when it's scanning, it's not scanning properly, so it kind of has like this jarring motion. That was present in here. And then the last thing is the audio. The audio in this movie, unfortunately, is probably the worst aspect of it in terms of just the quality. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of moments when characters are talking and they're going on and on and on and on, you hear as they're talking, and then there's other times where the audio and my speakers are not peaked. Like, I don't have the volume like incredibly loud or anything down here, but there were several moments where the audio was just straight up clipping. That's a little disappointing. Outside of that though, which I mean does not hinder my experience very much because I know it's more of a transfer restoration kind of thing, but I figured it was still worth mentioning. But I really enjoyed this movie. This whole trilogy I would highly recommend checking out, especially if you're a fan of you know, kind of mobster crime drama movies. They're really good, and I really enjoyed this one. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the last movie. Hopefully it lives up to the hype of this trilogy. So we'll see. All right, last day, last movie of the box set, Rulers of the City from 1976. Now, this is the only film in the box set that isn't connected to the Milan trilogy. That's what I'm going to call it, the Milan trilogy. I never did look it up throughout this week to see how to actually pronounce it. But this box set has been great so far. I've really loved every movie so far in the set. So I am curious to see how this one does, especially compared to that trilogy, and see how it kind of holds up. It does. I'm not sure if there's anybody, at least from the cover and the titles and the name, I'm not recognizing any of them from the original trilogy. But yeah, let's see what this one's like. All right, so Rulers of the City was, in my opinion, the first strike out of the box set. And yeah, my dog's even done with it. I'm just kidding. I did not care that much for this one. That I'm not kidding about. But you know how we've been saying like sleepability and stuff like that? Well, Lemmy didn't sleep through this movie at all. He also did not pay attention and instead pestered me the entire runtime. I also don't think he was into this one very much. If you don't know what Rulers of the City is about, it's about Tony, who was an ex-boxer who now works as like a loan enforcement officer for this mobster. And in the process of wanting to earn more money, he kind of screws over a big mafioso that kind of unravels the entire world that this is set in, and then it becomes this big like small team versus big mafia kind of story, and it just meanders. This movie meanders like crazy. It really takes majority of the runtime to even get the plot set up, and then it rushes the back end of it like drastically. Now, with the other movies in this set, one thing that I've liked about every one of them is either, you know, Caliber 9 was character focused, but it also had this big world that it took time to invest and indulge in. You know, the Italian Connection was more of a character driven piece, and you kind of really get connected with Luca. And then The Boss was like this entire massive universe, this whole organization world, and all this infighting, and you have all these different pathways that we bounce back between, but everything's fleshed out and developed. This one, on the other hand, has kind of none of those. Tony is not a very charming main character. Kind of doesn't feel like the main character after the second part of the movie. The main boss mob is a pretty generic boss mafioso, although Jack Palance, he does come off as menacing because he's just kind of got one of those faces, you know. But yeah, I just couldn't really get into this one. I will say there are some good action moments in this movie. There are some good shots in this movie. You know, something I complained about with The Boss was it was more straightforward and how it was shot in the cinematography, where Rulers of the City kind of feels more like a mixture of Caliber 9 and the Italian Connection when it comes to visuals. So I do like that aspect of the movie. There was some good shots. There was some interesting ideas of the action. I love the opening set piece of this movie. The opening set piece is like two mobsters go into this house and one stabs the other one in the back, and you come to learn that that is the main boss. They call him Scarface pretty much in this movie. That was great. I really enjoyed that aspect of it. You start off with Tony, and he's, you know, running around with this mob and everything like that, and you're kind of like invested, and then it just dips off for a majority of the run period until we finally get the wheels going kind of little too late. You know what I mean? Another thing, the music in this movie was basically absent in my opinion. I don't remember anything about it, and I just finished watching it. And then the last thing that I really didn't like about this one was it tries really hard to be humorous and kind of like quirk that the other movies did not have. The other movies are very straightforward, you know, drama, mafioso, serious kind of movies. And this one tried to have like a lot of humor in it, and it just fell flat. It was very awkward. The ending shot of this movie is terrible, in my opinion, honestly. You know, I'm not gonna lie, I just feel a little disappointed in this one after the rest of the box set. Now, I do want to say something that I kind of felt like going into this one. With this box set basically being 3 movies of a trilogy and then a 4th movie, I was kind of like, is that 4th movie going to feel like a tag-along movie? Is it going to feel like a bonus movie just to make a box set more palatable? And that is exactly how I feel about Rulers of the City. It does kind of just feel like a tacked-on movie for the box set to have this, this set to feel more complete. And the end of the day, though, this box set is 100% worth getting just for the Milan trilogy. Caliber 9 is great. The Italian Connection is great. The Boss is my favorite of the bunch. All 3 of those movies I would highly recommend checking out at some point. I really enjoyed all 3 of those, and that to me makes this box set 1000% worth it. Fernando Di Leo, interesting director, has a pretty good style. I would be curious to check out some more of his films, depending on what they are. You know, I do have a penchant for crime mafioso style movies. I think they're really fun to watch. Yeah, I enjoyed them. Even Rulers of the City, that I didn't care as much for, which I'm going to give a 5 out of 10, by the way. And I don't know what Lemmy's rating would be, but he didn't care too much for it because, like I said, all he did was pester me the whole movie. But yeah, outside of that, though, these 3 movies, minus Rulers of the City, are fantastic and worth the box set alone. And if I mispronounced anything throughout this entire video, I don't care. Well, that's pretty much it for this one. If you want to support what I do, consider becoming a member or subscribing or liking or sharing. Any of that stuff goes a long way in helping out. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.